I'm Emily, a 35-year-old full-time homemaker. Just the other day, I gave birth to twins John and Sarah. The labor was grueling, spanning 2 days from contractions to delivery, and I was physically exhausted. However, the moment I heard their healthy first cries, all my fatigue vanished. Initially, we had planned to return to my parents' home, but a month before my due date, my mother was hospitalized for surgery. My parents were eagerly anticipating our arrival with the babies. My mom even reassured me that despite her recovery, it would be okay for us to come over. However, we prioritized her health and decided to stay put, choosing to manage on our own with my husband's help. But instead of enjoying the early days of parenthood, we were blindsided by an unexpected ordeal. What follows is the story of the intense harassment I faced during that time. It was the third morning after I returned to our apartment with the twins. Suddenly, the intercom rang loudly, startling me. Who could it be at this early hour? Peering through the peephole, I saw my mother-in-law standing outside. What? My mother-in-law? Why? I quickly unlocked the door, and she barged in as soon as it opened. The commotion woke up John, and his cries soon stirred Sarah. The babies had cried a lot the previous night, and they had just fallen asleep when my mother-in-law's abrupt entrance disrupted their rest. She had taken a taxi over, and I couldn't turn her away. I headed to the kitchen to prepare some tea and snacks. Oh my, what a mess. I can't believe my son is living in such conditions. Emily, you hadn't been slacking on your chores just because you had a baby, right? My mother-in-law sounded like the stereotypical nagging character from a TV drama, running her finger along the windowsills to check for dust. I'm sorry, but they cried so much last night that I hardly slept. I'll clean up when they calm down, I said, trying to console the crying twins. She swatted my hand away, took the babies, and said, I'll take care of the twins. Sleepless night or not, you shouldn't slack off. Start your house chores early if you want to be a good wife. Despite my exhaustion, she insisted I start housework immediately. No matter how much I tried to explain, she wouldn't listen and focus solely on the twins. Reluctantly, I prepared some formula milk to give her, only to hear, What? You're feeding them formula? Any mother would breastfeed. What kind of unloving parent are you? Her words struck me deeply, hitting the very thing I was most self-conscious about. I nearly started crying. Holding back tears, I did as she demanded and began cleaning the room. Although she had said she would take care of the babies, she merely soothed them casually. When their diapers needed changing, she seemed disgusted and called me in the middle of my chores to do it. I couldn't make any progress with the housework and couldn't understand why she had even come over. Moreover, for the next 2 months, she came over almost every day, half-heartedly soothing the babies and constantly complaining about me. This time was nothing but pain as I endured her incessant criticisms. I wanted to talk to my husband about it, but he was always exhausted after long days at work, so I never found the opportunity. For 2 months, I put up with her snide remarks. When she finally told me she wouldn't be coming anymore, I thought I was free. But to my surprise, she suddenly held out her hand and said, Hey, pay me quickly, 2 months' worth of transportation expenses and thanks for helping with child care. It's normal, right? Unbelievable. She was demanding both travel expenses and a thank you payment. I snapped at her words. What are you talking about? When did I ask for your help? If I had asked, it would be a different story, but I never did. In fact, your presence for the past 2 months has been nothing but unpleasant. Please don't come here anymore. Saying that, I kicked my mother-in-law out of the house. Immediately after, I packed our things and took my twins back to my childhood home. I felt guilty burdening my mother, but I couldn't find peace if I stayed there. On the other hand, my mother-in-law went and spilled everything to my father-in-law and husband, painting herself as the victim. She claimed that despite all her efforts, I had spoken harshly to her. When my husband came home to find us missing, he was taken aback. Upon hearing the situation from me, he turned pale and stormed off to his parents' house. The next day, my father-in-law, who had only heard my mother-in-law's side of the story, turned white as a sheet when he heard what my husband had to say. Oh no, what have you done, dear? My father-in-law suddenly turned on my mother-in-law, his face a mask of fury. He is usually a mild-mannered man who rarely gets angry. Even my husband had never seen him so mad. My husband was at a loss for words, and my mother-in-law was flustered. What? Why are you so mad? Isn't she the one at fault? After all, I went out of my way to reduce her burden of childcare, even spending on travel expenses. Why should I be the one getting scolded? She argued that she had been considerate of me and insisted she did nothing wrong. No, you don't understand anything. Do you know who her grandfather is? My father-in-law, trembling with anger, stared at her with wide eyes. Who? You mean the scary-looking old man who came to the wedding. I remember you bowing and scraping to him, but what about him? Don't tell me you're being threatened by that old man. No, that man is the chairman of my company. When she heard those words, my mother-in-law let out an unintentional what? As it turns out, my grandpa is the chairman of a major corporation. My wedding was quite a large affair, with several CEOs of famous companies in attendance. Grandpa is strict with both himself and others, not one to laugh or engage in pleasurable conversation much, but he dotes on me, his granddaughter. Every time we met, he'd buy me expensive toys or take me to upscale restaurants. When I got married, I later heard from Grandma that Grandpa was so happy he cried, which surprised everyone. Given how much Grandpa dotes on me, he would definitely not stay silent if he knew about what my mother-in-law had done. Under normal circumstances, one would already be scared stiff just by that. But there was another reason why my father-in-law didn't want this getting out to Grandpa. I was on the cusp of either getting a promotion to a managerial position or not. If I became a manager, my salary would significantly increase. It was a crucial time for me to give my best, and yet, without understanding how I felt, my mother-in-law stirred up this mess. What on earth was she thinking? My father-in-law couldn't care less about me right now. All he was thinking about was his promotion rather than his family. My husband, who knew his father's true intentions, seemed deeply disappointed that he didn't consider the twins and me. Even though it was his own parent, he said, "Enough is enough. I'm disappointed in my dad, who only thinks about himself, and shocked at my mom, who's been bullying my wife. Stay out of our lives." Hearing her son's words of disarmament, my mother-in-law rushed towards my husband with incredible force. "Don't joke around. You're the heir to this family. I won't let you abandon this house. I'm going to go to Emily's place and talk some sense into her. She's our daughter-in-law, after all. She needs to handle the household properly," my mother-in-law declared. Upon hearing this, my father-in-law said, "You're not planning on barging into Emily's parents' house, are you? Don't do anything rash. I'll lose my chances of a promotion if you interfere." My husband, stunned by the exchange, left his family home without saying another word. He walked to my parents' house, explained what had happened, and apologized. His face was more sad than angry. "I can't believe my own parents are like this. I'm sorry." In response, my parents didn't say much. "Come on, let's have dinner since you're here," they offered. "That's right, James. You can stay here for the night if you'd like. Our house is close to your apartment. Just bring a change of clothes." At first, my husband hesitated, but after some thought and feeling the need to relax with the twins, he decided to stay. It had been a while since we had a calm family moment. Seeing my husband cuddle our crying twins was quite endearing. When it came time to sleep, the twins were nestled between us. I wish we could always enjoy such peaceful moments, but I knew my mother-in-law wouldn't stay silent. Deep down, I feared she might show up suddenly. But no one could have anticipated how quickly she would strike. The next day, while my parents were at work, the doorbell rang incessantly. I had a sinking feeling about it. Peering at the intercom, I was shocked to see my mother-in-law standing outside, unannounced. "Open the door. I know you're in there. Give me back my grandchildren," she shouted, banging on the door. My mother-in-law rang the intercom repeatedly while banging on the door, and the twins' cries were nearly driving me to the edge. Then someone unexpectedly opened the door for me. "Finally, you opened the door. Now quickly hand over the twins' toe." "Wait, who are you?" The person who opened the door was my grandfather. "Who do you think you are, banging on someone's door like this?" "How rude," he said, his voice stern. Whether he was angry or not, my grandfather spoke with a commanding presence that left my mother-in-law dumbfounded and speechless. "Wait a minute, you can't be the chairman my husband mentioned, can you?" my mother-in-law asked, her voice trembling. "Ha! Oh, now I remember. Are you James' mother-in-law? I didn't recognize you because you didn't introduce yourself at the wedding." My mother-in-law had been entirely against our marriage. She felt as though she was losing the son she had raised so carefully and adamantly refused to attend the wedding. However, the people around her managed to persuade her to come, though I heard she didn't greet any of my relatives and remained in the waiting room with a sullen expression. It's no wonder my grandpa didn't recognize her. When he realized who she was, his face grew even more intimidating, and he stared at her, who was now visibly trembling. I had previously told my grandfather everything I had been through. He had likely anticipated my mother-in-law might try to force her way in, which is probably why he had been staying here for a while. Of course, the real reason he had come was to see the grandchildren, but he hadn't expected such an aggressive intrusion. I didn't come here to bother you, Emily. I just came to see the twins because you brought them here without telling me. It's cruel not to inform me, she insisted, claiming she had only come to visit the twins and not to harass me. Yet her actions, banging on the door, pressing the intercom repeatedly, and demanding her grandchildren, spoke otherwise. Is that so? But didn't you just demand that my grandfather return my children to you? Since when did they become your possession? My mother-in-law couldn't ignore this and retorted, What are you talking about? Those kids are the grandchildren of our family, especially John, who is the heir. They are rightfully ours, not yours. It was clear that her interest in the twins was solely because they were heirs. She cared for Sarah too, but John, being the heir, was her favorite. I see. I understand your affection for the twins, but is it right to neglect their mother, who was exhausted after childbirth? Forcing your way into her home is quite terrible, don't you think? My mother-in-law looked taken aback and started to turn pale again. Wait, you're not going to tell my husband about this, are you? He specifically told me not to come here. I can't let him find out. Despite her husband's clear instructions not to come, she had come of her own volition. If her husband found out, she might even face divorce papers. Pleading with my grandfather, she begged him to keep her visit a secret. But my grandfather, unwavering, responded, What are you talking about? There's no need to hide anything, especially if there's something to feel guilty about. I'll inform your husband about your visit. Next time, make sure to schedule an appointment, okay? With that, he closed the front door. Normally, my mother-in-law would have kept knocking and pressing the intercom repeatedly, but with Grandpa, the chairman, at home, she left quietly. She didn't mention her abrupt visit to my family's home, but later, my grandfather summoned her husband to his office and detailed what had happened. Despite his wife's blatant disregard for his advice, my father-in-law was visibly angry. I deeply apologize for my wife's thoughtless actions. I'll make sure she never does anything like this again, he said, offering a sincere apology to my grandfather. My father-in-law was sincerely apologizing to my grandfather, partly to salvage his promotion. However, my grandfather wasn't fooled by his father-in-law's true intentions. True, what your wife did is inexcusable, but don't you share some of the blame? You seem focused only on immediate concerns and pay little attention to those around you. There's significant dissatisfaction with you at the workplace. I can't possibly promote someone like that. As a result, my father-in-law's promotion was rescinded. Feeling that his wife had jeopardized his career, he returned home, gave his wife a stern reprimand, and slammed a completed divorce paper on the table before packing his bags and leaving. Until now, my mother-in-law had relied entirely on my father-in-law's salary, and without him, she faced an uncertain future. She tried to persuade him to stay, but it was too late. The damage was irreversible. All of this happened because of that woman. She should never have married my beloved James. I can't forgive her. I'll never forgive her. Having lost everything, my mother-in-law went on a rampage, storming my parents' home. She pounded on the door and screamed at the top of her lungs, I've lost everything because of you. If only you weren't here. Give me back my grandchildren. Give me back James. It was already past 9 p.m., and her behavior was nothing short of insane. Unable to endure it any longer, my husband called the police. My mother-in-law was taken to the station in a squad car. Throughout the ordeal, my husband continued to apologize to my parents and my grandfather for the trouble, even though they knew he wasn't at fault. The return of peace to our home was a welcome relief, and we hoped no one would disturb us again. We looked forward to finally living in tranquility. It was regrettable that things had come to this, but the prospect of raising our children in peace brought me a sense of relief. Subsequently, my in-laws divorced. My mother-in-law moved back to her parents' home in a remote, rural area with infrequent bus service. Without a driver's license, traveling was nearly impossible for her. The woman who had once been so eager to be close to her grandchildren now struggled with the absence of their presence. She repeatedly begged my husband to let her see the children and to reconcile with me, but my husband, unable to forgive his self-centered mother, blocked her calls. Unable to see her grandchildren and estranged from her son, my mother-in-law became increasingly despondent. Her parents offered no words of comfort, leaving her isolated. In the end, she locked herself in her room, crying daily in a state of deep regret.